Hello everyone. So in this video, we're going to be looking at the wide-legged forward fold. And I am going to be using blocks. If you have blocks, feel free to grab them. You can also use a chair. So the reason for this is to basically bring the floor closer to you. So sometimes if we try to take a forward fold, if the floor is really far and it just doesn't feel accessible, we can use blocks underneath the hands. So that's why I have the blocks. You can use the seat of a chair instead if you like. That would work as well. Okay, so wide-legged forward fold is great for strengthening the feet and the legs. So we want to take our feet about one leg's length apart. Now, it should be wide enough that you feel like you're getting a bit of a stretch in the inner thigh, but not so wide that you feel unstable, okay, or unsafe in any way. So I'm going to have the feet out wide, and if I was to take my hands out, ideally over time, I want to have it so that my feet are about in line with my hands when my hands are out shoulder width apart. It's not exact, but it's a pretty wide stance. But again, if that doesn't feel stable, you can have the feet a little closer together. And then I'm going to take my hands onto the pelvis. And if you remember in the first video in Tadasana, we were talking about, mountain pose, we were talking about the anterior tilt of the pelvis versus the posterior, or the forward tilt or the backward tilt. Here we want to create a little bit of a forward tilt of the pelvis to initiate the forward fold so that we are folding from our hip joint and not the waist. Okay, so we want to be folding from the hip joint. I'll show it from the side so you can get another perspective. So instead of rounding from the low back and the waist, we want to actually tilt the pelvis forward, like I'm bringing my sit bones up and back, and tilting forward from the hip joint, which is actually all the way down here. It's not up on the waist, it's actually further down. And if you like, you can put blocks underneath the hands. Let me just grab my blocks. So, we start with our feet wide. You can take the hands to the hips, and then you want to press into the feet and strengthen the legs so you're nice and active in the legs, spine nice and long. And then you're going to tilt the pelvis forward as you bring your hands either to the floor or to the blocks, with the blocks right under your shoulders. Or you can have your hands on a chair, that works as well. And then I take a moment to lengthen my spine, keep pressing into my feet so my legs are active. And then I'm just going to shift my weight slightly forward of the heels, just slightly. The heels are still down, but I'm shifting the weight just slightly forward of the heels as I fold. Now, if the hamstrings are tight in the back of the legs, it's perfectly fine to bend the knees. But when you do that, notice if you're kind of dropping down, if you feel like your low back starts to round. We want to work towards straightening the legs, even if they are bent. We want to work towards straightening the legs, not by pushing the knees back, but instead by pressing the feet down and at the same time lifting the pelvis up. And just working in that direction. Again, the knees can still be a bit bent, but we want to create that action of pressing down into the feet as we lift the pelvis up. So the spine is nice and long. And the hands are about shoulder width apart. Fingers facing forward. And I want to notice if my shoulders are kind of coming up towards my ears, which will make my neck feel kind of compressed. So I'm going to go back to showing you from the other perspective, so you can see from this perspective. When I'm in the fold, I don't want my elbows to flare out, and my neck to get kind of really short here. Instead, I want the hands, fingers facing forward, elbows pointing straight back, and then draw the shoulder blades down the back towards the waist a bit. And if you can see that, it kind of creates a space for the neck. And then to come up, you can come up with straight legs, or you can bend the knees, take the hands to the thighs to help you come up, and just take your time, especially if you tend to get lightheaded at all. Some people, when they do that posture and come up, they feel a little lightheaded, so take your time. Let me bring the feet back together. So that is the wide-legged forward fold. And in the next practice, we're going to be looking at pyramid pose. Thank you.